I've worked with better, but not many. Thank you.
The Fantastic Four First Steps is actually my first MCU movie in theaters. That might shock some people, but I've never seen any of the MCU movies on the big screen. First impressions, it's good. It reminded me of the first Iron Man and X-Men movies. It's got the essence of the Fantastic Four, honoring the comic, especially Kirby's aesthetic, as best as they could, while still doing its own thing. I love the retrofuturism. It grounds the movie in something familiar while also giving it a comic book feel without making it look campy. And by setting the movie in its own universe, the movie avoids getting bogged down by all the MCU bloat. Instead of cramming in every Fantastic Four villain, the movie gives hinted cameos of them in the opening montage. That fleshes out the world without complicating the story. That said, it looks like they cut John Malkovich's Red Ghost from the film. He's mentioned, but never gets screen time. This makes sense though. The film is built around the Fantastic Four and their beef with Galactus and the Silver Surfer. Anything that pulls away from that story just wastes time. When it comes to the characters, the cast was fantastic. They had perfect chemistry. They felt like a family, and the film spends a lot of time, a whole lot of time, showing off the family dynamics. Fortunately, it's not boring. It's lots of character interactions. Sue Storm gets a lot of screen time. Vanessa Kirby nailed the character. In an interview, she mentioned that she read up on Sue Storm's character, and it shows. You get peeks of Sue's different personalities over the years. This is a more confident Sue, closer to her late 80s, early 90s personality than her original attitude from the 60s. And the change wasn't done just to check a box. It serves a story. There's a moment when the world turns on the Fantastic Four, and Sue uses that confidence to sway the mob back to the team's side. Joseph Quinn played a slightly less horny Johnny Storm. He's smarter than his comic book counterpart, but he's still got the humor, especially between him and Ben Grimm. He's also given a couple of things to do in the film that the comic book Johnny Storm would fail at immediately. It's a slightly different take, but he still feels like Johnny Storm. Eben Moss-Baccarat is easily the best version of Ben Grimm to hit the big screen. He's got Ben's personality perfect. The VFX for the thing are also stellar. There are some scenes where the VFX aren't as polished and look a little cartoony, but overall, they hold up, especially in close-ups. That said, I got the feeling that some of Ben's scenes got trimmed or cut because some of his story beats feel a little rushed. However, what we do get does a great job of showing Ben's strength, humanity, and loneliness, which are all core to his character. And again, the film nailed the banter between Ben and Johnny. And then there's Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. I thought he did a great job of what he was given. He plays Reed as a bit removed, a little in his own head, which is true of Reed's character in the comics. Pascal's Mr. Fantastic tries to be warmer and more connected, but keeps fighting against his tendency to get wrapped up in solving problems, especially after finding out Sue is pregnant. The only drawback to me is that Reed never really solves a problem outright. The whole movie is about him failing to immediately find the answer, which is fine for drama, but I mean, he is Reed Richards. He's arguably the smartest man in the world. He should be able to solve something on his own. Overall, I thought all the Fantastic Four actors embodied the characters. They're not exactly pulled from the pages, but they're definitely familiar and feel like a family. Surprisingly, Galactus worked. I was ready for that to fail because he's just a giant man, and that can easily look silly if you try to make him look realistic, and he kinda does look goofy when he arrives on Earth. But his introduction on the spaceship? No complaints. In terms of performance, Ralph Ineson didn't have much to do. I know the director supposedly had Ineson on set, but none of that really translated to the screen. Ultimately, it's just Ineson talking in a slow, menacing voice and occasionally smirking. I still think the gribblies all over his suit don't really work. I understand they're supposed to give a sense of scale and advanced technology, but it still looks too busy to me. And finally, there's Julie Garner as the Silver Surfer. She did a fantastic job. Right out the gate, she added the sense of Shalabal tried to suppress her shame and disgust over sacrificing these worlds to Galactus. She pretends to be cold, but you can tell there's still some humanity lurking under her silver veneer. That's a bit of a different take on the Silver Surfer from the comics, since Alicia Masters is the one who helps him find his humanity again. However, the film shifts that role to Johnny Storm, although there's not a lot of time spent on those scenes. There's only 2 in the movie. As for the Surfer's look, the VFX teams fixed the Surfer's reflective texture, so she looks much better than she did in the trailer. There's a scene where the Fantastic Four are flying through space as the Surfer chases them, and we see all these crazy reflections of stars in the ship in her skin. The only thing that looks weird is the hair. I think it would have been better if it was a solid mask or if she was just bald. Now, when it comes to the sex swap, the best I could tell for why they did this was to give Johnny Storm something to do, because he's the one who reaches her, and that's kind of all he does in the film. Since it's not the regular MCU, which they say at the start of the movie, I'm not that bothered by it. The real Silver Surfer is still out there. Hell, he might even show up in Doomsday or Secret Wars. Either way, Garner did a great job with the character. When it comes to the story, it's pretty bare bones. The film makes it clear right from the start that it takes place in Universe 828, coined after Jack Kirby's birthday. It's set in the 1960s, but not our version of the 60s. The Fantastic Four got their powers 4 years before the film starts, and they've spent that time fighting various supervillains and helping the world via the Future Foundation. As a result, this 1960s has a retrofuturism flair. They're flying cars, giant TVs, monorails, and the such. It's like Disney's World of Tomorrow meets Marvel Comics. Sue finds out she's pregnant with Franklin, and Reed needs to cope with the idea of becoming a father. As the team celebrates their 4-year anniversary, Reed picks up cosmic messages that appear to be in alien language. Shortly after, the Silver Surfer shows up, announcing Galactus will destroy the planet. During their confrontation with the Surfer, she speaks to Johnny, repeating the message from before. The Fantastic Four decide to go into deep space to find Galactus and defeat him before he comes to Earth. Reed uses the Surfer's energy signature to track them down, and when the Fantastic Four find Galactus' ship, it scans them, focusing on Sue's belly. Once the team meets Galactus, he discovers Sue is pregnant and that the child has untold cosmic powers, enough to take over Galactus' place. So he offers the team a deal. Give him the baby, and he will spare Earth. Obviously, the team refuses, and they go back to Earth to try to figure out how to stop Galactus. I don't want to spoil too much of the film, but that's the gist of what happens. The rest is dealing with the fallout of the world finding out about the team refusing to take the deal, Reed struggling to find a solution to defeat Galactus that doesn't involve Franklin, and Johnny trying to reach the Silver Surfer and plead to her humanity. Like I said before, the story is pretty bare bones, so there's not a lot of moving parts. It's kind of predictable, but in a good way, especially when it comes to how Sue protects Franklin. The end of the movie hinges on that, and this might be a bit of a spoiler, but I suspect some people might object to Sue being able to hold and eventually push Galactus back onto a teleportation platform. I can already hear complaints about her being a girl boss, which tells me that none of those people read comics because, canonically, Sue Storm is the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four. Her force fields can block psionic abilities, meaning if she put Jean Grey in a force field, she'd completely nullify Jean's telepathy and telekinesis by trapping them in the field. She even does this to her son Franklin, who can alter reality when he's Psi-Lord and in greater control over his powers. In terms of physical force, Sue's force fields can handle a nuclear explosion, so pushing Galactus is well within her capabilities. The side effect is that she feels what happens to the force fields, so it causes strain on her body, which explains the end of the film. So if anyone takes issue with this, just let them know. Technically, it's canon. Overall, I enjoyed the movie. My only major criticism of the film is that it is slow. It's barely 2 hours long. It feels longer. This isn't a sprint. It's not a jog. It's not even a brisk walk. It's like a tourist walking around a major city. You can walk faster. That is allowed. The pacing probably comes from the focus on character building. That takes time and can easily zap the momentum. Fortunately, it's well written and the cast has great chemistry, so it's not boring. It just makes the film move at a very leisurely pace. It also feels like they cut some scenes and characters. I mentioned Ben's scenes and the Red Ghost getting cut. It feels like some other stuff got cut as well. Nothing that breaks or hurts the story, but the edges aren't exactly neatly trimmed. Now, I'm curious about the plans for Franklin. It feels like they introduced him just to retcon the MCU. Kevin Feige all but confirmed this recently when he said Secret Wars would reset the MCU to bring in the X-Men. Reboots are messy affairs in comics, but comic book fans are used to that. This hasn't happened on this scale in cinema before. We're talking about tweaking something Marvel spent 2 decades building. I'm not sure how normies will react. My guess is not well, depending on what gets reset, but we'll have to wait and see. I do think it's kind of unfortunate, though, that the Fantastic Four will get pulled into the broader MCU because part of the charm of the movie is that it's its own thing. Again, this was a solid start for the new take on the Fantastic Four. It's definitely the best official cinematic version of them, the best actual version being The Incredibles. And I thought this was better than the new Superman movie. I saw both films with the same set of friends, and they were split on which one was better, but in general, everybody liked both movies. Since I haven't seen any of the MCU films past the first Avengers movie, I have no idea what's coming next with the massive crossover, but I do have some time to catch up, so maybe I'll watch all the MCU films in release order and give my thoughts. I say release order and not chronological order because if I did that, Captain Marvel would be the second film on the list, and I'd just quit. That cannot be the second movie I watch. I'm going to have to build up to watching that. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.